Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started here. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Ani Krishnan, and I'm an energy planner for the Metropolitan Area Planning Council. I'm glad you could join us this Friday afternoon. We have some great presentations for you on community shared solar models in Massachusetts. This webinar is the third in a series of solar webinars that Mapc has hosted. We had one on solar permitting and bylaws and another one on solar outreach program models over the past few months, and both those webinars are up on the web. Today's, of course, is on community shared solar, and the webinar will be recorded, is being recorded, I should say. And we have another one coming up at the end of the month on managing solar arrays for municipal properties, so stay tuned for more information on that one, and we'll circulate some details shortly. So the purpose of today's webinar is to talk about the status of community shared solar in the state. Many of our municipalities have been approached with interesting and sometimes unique propositions on how to participate or take advantage of community shared solar projects, but there's still a level of uncertainty regarding the benefits and the structure of these projects, and the landscape for solar and community shared solar is evolving rapidly, so that's another reason why we wanted to have an opportunity for our municipalities to learn more about this. So we're hoping that the presentations today will shed a little more light on how community shared solar projects can be beneficial to municipalities, either as a participant to buy the energy or as a host for your community members. We will kick off with a brief introduction to Mapc. I'll be doing that. And then we'll move on to a presentation by Krause over at DOER, who will talk about the regulatory and policy context for community shared solar in Massachusetts. And then we'll have two great presentations from Hannah Masterjohn from the Clean Energy Collective and Lynn Benander from Co-op Power to talk about how they've been structuring their commercial community shared solar projects to benefit municipalities. We'll take Q&A. I guess at the very end of the webinar, that's how we see it to be most beneficial. But if there are clarification questions on specific presentations, do let us know. And if you don't mind identifying who you want the question to be directed towards, that'd be helpful as well. So I'm going to jump ahead into the presentation about Mapc. We're the regional planning agency serving 101 cities and towns in the greater Boston region. Our mission is smart growth and regional collaboration for the whole region, and our work spans over multiple disciplines, from land use to environmental planning to transportation planning, and we've recently been doing a lot of work in the clean energy division as well. So our work here at the clean energy division can be put into three, I guess, broad categories. We do a lot of regional projects where we aggregate groups of communities and run a procurement on their behalf for energy services. We've run these procurements for hiring ESCOs, for solar developers, and for streetlight retrofits. And communities seem to like this approach because Mapc takes over the administrative burden of actually running the procurement, and communities can focus on making an informed decision collaboratively on which vendor to select. We actually have an ongoing solar procurement that involves 17 communities, and they all have the option of using any proposed municipal solar array as a community shared solar site. We are also open to actually developing another procurement if there's enough interest among our municipalities to implement another municipal solar procurement, whether it's shared solar or just for the municipality. The other bucket of our work falls under our local energy action program, and we help communities one-on-one to put together energy baselines, develop energy plans, and implement energy programs, and we partner a lot with utilities to do this and with other state agencies like DOER and Mapc, and also third-party vendors who offer interesting energy solutions. And then finally, we offer a bunch of energy resources and technical assistance. We're getting into newer areas of energy planning like community electricity aggregation. We have a lot of work going on around resiliency and climate preparedness. We help communities apply for green communities. We help them identify projects for green communities grant funding. And we also have a great toolkit online where we explain a lot of these topics, and it's a good starting point for folks who are wanting to get familiar with what you can do in terms of energy in Massachusetts. So with that, I'm going to hand the presentation over to Emma Krause from DOER. I'm going to pull up her slides. Emma, do we have you?
Hi, folks. Emma here.
Great.
So hello, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in today. As Ani said, my name is Emma Krause. I work at the Massachusetts Department of Energy Resources. Here I serve as the Rooftop Solar Challenge Coordinator. Rooftop Solar Challenge is a federal program devoted to reducing solar soft costs. So in that capacity, I work on various areas of soft cost reduction, permitting, zoning, financing, and interconnection. And community shared solar kind of falls in this realm. So thought I'd give a brief overview of sort of the policies in place in Massachusetts concerning community shared solar, some of the resources and programs, and also some of the models that we're seeing out there. So if we can go to the next slide, please.
Yep.
There's two main policies in Massachusetts about community shared solar, the first of which is the SREC2 program. Many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with the SREC2 program. It rolled out last spring, and it provides a very specific definition for community shared solar, which you can see up on the screen there. For everyone's sake, I won't read the whole thing, but just talking about how the SREC program, it really provides a substantial flexibility with regards to ownership for the role of the participants, and this is on purpose. You know, you're going to hear from Lynn and Hannah, and they're both doing community shared solar, but it's very different ways of going about it. And we recognize that there are a lot of different models out there, some that we might not even know of yet. So the goal with SREC2 is really to make a policy that was flexible enough to compensate all these different kinds of models, but at the same time put the necessary sort of regulatory definition into place. The other kind of key piece of this program is that it allows for anchor off-takers, but requires many small off-takers as well. And this is a model kind of more synonymous with what Hannah's going to talk about. This idea of having a big person anchoring it with many small off-takers, or more like Lynn's model where you're having a bunch of small off-takers getting together. One of the main ways that we are trying to incentivize community shared solar through the SREC2 program is if you are doing a community shared solar project and it meets the definition of community shared solar, you're going to get the highest SREC factor, which is a really nice incentive for folks to try to go out there and put these projects together, especially when solar on their own homes is not quite feasible. The most common, well, you know what, I'll get to that a little bit later, I think. I'll just go through the policies first. So those are SRECs. And then if we can move to third slide there. This talks about net metering, which is the other big Massachusetts policy that supports net metering. As many of you know, that supports community shared solar. As many of you know, it's an incentive program, and it's designed to encourage customers to install distributed generation. The idea is that customers will offset their electricity use and are in turn compensated for the electricity they generate and they don't use. If you exceed your consumption, you will receive credit on your bill for that excess generation, and it's received to a monetary value. And we have seen a lot in Massachusetts that a lot of non-residential and municipal solar projects depend on net metering credits along with SREC revenue to really make their projects feasible. You can think of a bunch of different sort of landfill projects that we're seeing across the state that would kind of fit this, that really speak to this need. There have been, as I'm also sure many of you know, a lot of political discussions around net metering. This slide is slightly outdated. It should say, instead of raise the net metering caps last summer, it should say summer before that. But we all know that there have been net metering caps in place and that they've been raised several times. Currently, they are at 5% for public projects, 4% for private. That a task force was established earlier this year by the legislature, earlier last year, by the legislature, to really dive into net metering and solar incentive policy in Massachusetts in general. That task force put together a final report, which was delivered to the legislature at the beginning of May, and the legislature is currently looking at that report and has two bills before it to address the sort of net metering cap issue. And I think it's fair to say Hannah's model that she'll talk about relies a lot on net metering. Lynn's model relies on a lot on net metering, and really it's quite fundamental to a lot of community shared solar arrays throughout the state. So we'll go on to the next slide, number 4. There's a bunch of different resources out there from DOER. We're really trying to weave that narrative of, you know, offering a structure, but also allowing sort of all these different permeations of community shared solar to happen. You know, there's been many across the state. I think one of the ones folks are most common with might be the Harvard Solar Garden, which was a bunch of small off-takers and really directly own the system. Difficult to do. It took them about 3 years to put that together, and unique as well because one of their funding sources was a federal grant program that doesn't exist anymore. However, they were able to do it, and it's a really great inclination that it can happen and is a way to learn from. Other projects across the state, one of the other more common ones is one in Brewster. That's more of a sort of PPA-style project, and that project has also done well, and we've seen other replications of that getting off the ground. In addition to those, you see a lot from Clean Energy Collective, where Hannah's works. First one was in Rehoboth, which opened, I believe, last summer, if I'm not mistaken. And we're also seeing a lot of different thoughts going into how to go about this. You know, I've heard of condominium projects in Brookline. I know Lynn is working on a very interesting model, co-op model out in the western part of the state, and a lot of interest across the state in doing community shared solar and trying to figure out the most effective model. So with this in mind, DOER has a whole host of resources to try to help folks get there, first of which are the Municipal Energy Technical Assistance Grants through our Green Communities program. These grants are closed for this year. However, they have in the past been available for folks, whether they are a municipality, a green community or not, to apply for a grant for either a feasibility study with community shared solar or development. So we've got a couple of meta awardees that have gotten their grant this time around to do community shared solar work. As some may know, we're also currently working on a Massachusetts solar loan program. It's a residential solar loan program where DOER is working with lenders throughout the state to get them engaged in lending for solar. These loans will also be available to folks who want to purchase a share in a community shared solar setup. So in this case, you really need the loan in order to secure your share of that project and to really buy into the direct ownership of that project. It can't just be that you're getting reduced electricity. We really want to see that you own a chunk of that project, and that's why you need a loan. Other resources we've developed, under Rooftop Solar Challenge in round one, we put together two guides for community shared solar and with Cadmus Consulting Group. The first is a review of recommendations of models out there at the time, which was just Harvard and Brewster at that moment, as well as an implementation guide for community shared solar based on these models. I think we're very cognizant that these guides, while helpful, they don't really cover all permeations, and I think that's something we're very aware of and somewhat on purpose because, again, recognizing that there's just a lot of different ways that this can happen, and we don't want to be restrictive about the model if there's something out there that is developed that ends up working better than something previously. And then under Rooftop Solar Challenge 2, there's 3 different municipal partners, the City of Boston, the City of Cambridge, and the City of Winchester, and each has got a little bit of funding under that partnership to do their own projects. And inadvertently, all 3 of them are interested in community shared solar. But City of Boston took a look at a lot of municipal buildings across the city and are interested in doing a large-scale PPA with those buildings, community shared solar setup for the city. So they use their Rooftop Solar Challenge funding towards that. The City of Cambridge has been very interested in condominium work and has actually worked with DOER, Clean Energy States Alliance, and the City of Brookline to put together a community shared solar guide, a condo guide for solar. Which encapsulates community shared solar in that, and that should be available in the coming months for folks to use. And then the town of Winchester, solarized community, very engaged in solar early on, green community. They're interested in trying to figure out a nonprofit model for community shared solar, and they're really diving into that. So those 3 projects kind of also sort of serve as examples of ways different municipalities are thinking about community shared solar and approaching it. I know the City of Cambridge is also curious about sort of what something similar to what the City of Boston did. So definitely interesting things going on there, and happy to share more about those projects should individual folks want to talk offline. And then the last resource I'll lay out for you is the Green Communities Division did a Community Shared Solar webinar. I believe it was around the end of last year, and we talked a lot about the different models out there, the two guides, net metering and SREC policy, because many municipalities were telling us they're getting a lot of questions about it. So that's on the Green Communities website. You can see the link there and is available for folks to look at. Ani, if we can go to the final slide. So that's just a nice overview, talking about a couple of the different projects out there, a couple of things going on currently, and sort of policy structures that are in place to support it. Fully recognize that it's a very nuanced and sort of complicated thing to do, but it is doable in a few different ways that we know of thus far, and others could come out down the road. If there are any questions on anything I mentioned today that you'd like to learn more about, or have questions on, or just want to discuss perhaps a project that you're curious about, please don't hesitate to get in touch. You see my email and my phone number there, and I'm happy to connect.
All right, great. Thanks so much, Emma. That was a good sort of overview for folks who are not familiar with the space. I'm going to go ahead and switch over to our next presenter, who's going to be Hannah Masterjohn from the Clean Energy Collective. So,
well, thank you, Ani, for inviting me to join today. Happy to be here. And thank you, Emma, for that overview. So I just have to say I helped launch the Rooftop Solar Challenge back in, 2010 or 2011 when I was at the U.S. Department of Energy, and it is very gratifying to see how states, I think in particular Massachusetts, have taken that and run with it and really are acting as models for the rest of the country. So you guys are doing good work. Keep it up. Thank you. So I am here today, again, on behalf of Clean Energy Collective. So I think I'll just start by telling you guys a little bit about who we are and what we do, and then I'm going to jump into some descriptions of how local governments can participate in community shared solar projects, whether it's as a customer of those projects or whether it's kind of a more hands-on partnership in developing or marketing or otherwise benefiting from community shared solar projects. And then I'm going to wrap up with a little bit of a lay of the land in terms of the policy landscape right now in Massachusetts, which Emma alluded to. Okay, who we are, Clean Energy Collective. So we are the nation's leading provider of community solar solutions. We launched in 2009. We've got projects in 11 states with 25 utilities. We've got over 50 projects actually up online, operating, serving thousands of customers. All we do is community solar. That's been our focus since we've launched. As I said, we sort of started, actually building, owning, operating community solar facilities, but really the core of our business and what makes it all tick is kind of the platform behind community solar projects and all the different things you have to line up to make them work. And so we now kind of operate in two ways. We build and fund and build and administer projects. We also provide tools and services, software tools, to utilities, to other developers, to community groups who are looking to start community solar programs. So kind of cover this full suite of needs there. So that's who we are. I think, Emma gave a bit of an overview, and I'm guessing most of you have a pretty good understanding of the gist of what community solar is, but here's a nice little graphic. So this is our 1 megawatt array in Rehoboth, Massachusetts. So basically the idea is, you find an optimal site for solar, nice and sunny, to maximize the production, and community members, whether it's you guys as local governments, whether it's businesses, residents, sign up to participate and get a credit on their utility bill for their portion of the clean energy that's produced. So we typically have, for this 1 megawatt project, for example, the Somerset School District is what we call our anchor tenant. So we typically try to have a large, institutional or commercial customer who will be kind of the largest participant in a given project. And that helps us on the financing side, and it's a nice way for that organization to kind of be the backstop of the project in their community. And so that's kind of a natural role that local governments play. And in the case of this project that you see here, that was, again, that was a local school district. So that's just a nice example. So I'm going to jump into the first, kind of the first and what I would imagine is probably the easiest way for local governments to participate in community shared solar projects, and that is simply as customers of the projects. And then we'll get into other, like I said, kind of more hands-on ways. So as customers, the way that it would work if you wanted to participate in a community solar project is you would essentially purchase the rights to bill credits coming from that project. That's kind of the technical contractual situation of what's really happening. So you sign a long-term contract to get these bill credits, and what that means is that you are cash flow positive from day one. So we do, we do offer models where customers can pay upfront or could get a loan to finance an upfront payment where they would actually own the panels in the project for the life of it. That typically we found is not what local governments want to do because they don't want to have a large, cash outlay at the beginning. So that is an option. I'm not going to go into depth in that here because we've found that generally local governments prefer kind of the pay-as-you-go model where there's no upfront cost. You pay monthly for your subscription in the community solar project, and then you get a monthly bill credit on your utility bill. And the win-win here is that what you are paying to the community solar project manager is less than what you're saving on your utility bill. So you're cash flow positive from day one. And that is pretty significant savings. So obviously, it depends on the particulars of the project and the contract, but easily, for any local government, hundreds of thousands, if not a lot more, in savings. We, as a developer, and other developers like us, assume really all the risk associated with the project. It's our job to maintain the array, the solar array, make sure it's working, make sure it's producing energy, and you only pay for bill credits that you've actually received. So I guess, sometimes when we talk to local governments, they say, well, I don't get it. It sounds too good to be true. And I guess I would say the risk, perhaps, from your perspective, is to not do it, is to wait until, either the policy landscape changes, even outside of, kind of the Massachusetts policy landscape that I'll touch on later. There is a federal investment tax credit of 30% right now for solar projects that makes them quite a bit more affordable for customers. That tax credit is expected to expire at the end of 2016 unless Congress acts to extend it. So, that will change the economics a little bit of projects at that point. So you are in a bit of a sweet spot right now in a window where these projects are quite attractive to customers, local governments. So I encourage you to check it out. So that's what it would look like to participate as a customer. The next way where we worked with a lot of local governments is as a host. So, if a community has land, and it's often, if not, a certified brownfield, it's kind of marginal land or land where it's difficult to find another use for it. And those are really optimal, both because they're often cheap and, there's generally a community desire to redevelop those areas or develop those areas in some kind of positive use. And so we have worked with probably at least 10 local governments across the country to actually host on their land. That can, financially happen in several different ways. Some cases donated. More often there's a lease, so you're getting lease revenue. There's also the opportunity to basically provide the land and then get discounted energy from the project kind of in exchange there because it creates some value for us. So lots of opportunities there on the siting side of things. Landfills make great sites, water treatment plants, airports. We've done a couple of projects on airports and kind of worked through the FAA issues there. So, you know, again, I think this is just kind of a natural fit for local governments to work with community shared solar developers and figure out the best places to site projects. And another way to get involved here is as more of kind of a partner in the community shared solar program. So this could be, I mean, there's so many options here, but I just wanted to kind of highlight a couple. So one would be to help market community solar program. So local governments, you've got credibility, general trust of your residents and businesses, and also usually some good marketing channels in place to help market a community solar program. I know Solarize Massachusetts has been successful in advancing rooftop solar projects. We've heard, so I don't know the statistics from Massachusetts. I know in Connecticut, I've been told over 80% of the customers who, are interested in Solarize programs and sign up and want to learn more end up finding out they actually can't site solar on their own property. Their roof isn't suitable, it faces the wrong way, it's too shady, whatever the issue is. And so this, in Connecticut, they've got kind of lists of thousands and thousands of customers who have taken the time to say, yeah, I want to go solar, I'll go to a workshop, and they find out, they can't. And when you hand them, oh, you could install this energy-efficient light bulb, they're kind of like, that's not what I came for. So it's a really natural fit to then direct those customers to Solarize programs, to community solar programs, where they can still go solar and participate in their community even if they can't put it on their own roof. And there's, some potential for innovative partnerships there. Solar companies spend a lot of money getting customers and getting leads, and so to the extent that communities that are running Solarize programs want to partner with developers and kind of, send those customers their way, again, there's an opportunity for either revenue to the local government there or kind of a discount to those customers, depending on how you set it up. And then I just wanted to mention, the more that that developers can kind of coordinate up front, and I know this is a regional planning agency, so I thought this might be apropos to this audience on, planning, siting, permitting. We've had pretty good experience in Massachusetts with siting and permitting projects, but the earlier that we can get involved with the community on that, the better. We had a great experience recently in the city of Fort Collins, Colorado, and part of that was made a little easier because we were partnering with the municipal utility there. So, from the beginning we were involved with the city government. But we ended up doing a community solar project on a former pickle factory. It was right in the middle of town, so it's a nice infill site. And right from the beginning, we were coordinating with planning and zoning committees. And so it just, it leads to, I think, a better end result when we're having those conversations up front. In this case, it got really nice plans for kind of fencing and a park-like atmosphere. And I think it'll be a nice model, and I'd love to see more of those projects happen. So let me, whoops. Uh-oh. I think I've lost a slide here, but okay, well, let me just speak to this. The next slide is supposed to be on benefits to local governments. I apologize, the new content didn't make it in here. So outside of, participating as a customer or as a partner on the program, helping market it, or as hosting it on your lands, I just wanted to kind of point out that there are several benefits to local governments of having community shared solar projects in your jurisdiction. So obviously tax revenue, property tax revenue can be pretty significant. We tend to negotiate pilot agreements, payment in lieu of taxes with most of the communities that we work with, and that tends to be, we get calls back from those communities saying, hey, can we do another one? So it's that tends to work out pretty favorably for the community. And then there's, obviously just the kind of, there's permitting fees, but then there's also just kind of the pride and the community involvement, which is a real thing. People love to be able to say, I can see this project in my community and know that I helped build it, and it's providing clean energy to my area. So win-win all around. So we'll wrap up quickly here. I did want to touch on the policy landscape right now in Massachusetts, because this is important, and it would be kind of a mischaracterization for me to sit here and tell you how great community shared solar is without also mentioning that it is entirely at risk in Massachusetts right now. So without entering into the advocacy realm here, let me just kind of state the facts, which is, as Emma said, so community shared solar is dependent on net metering. Net metering is the mechanism, kind of the legal mechanism that we use to provide credits on participating customers' utility bills. So if we don't have net metering, we can't do that. We can't do community shared solar. So the net metering caps have been hit in National Grid territory. They're close to hit in NSTAR and Eversource territory. So this basically means, we're moving forward with development of projects, but you're getting close to the point where we need to stop if the net metering caps are not raised soon. So the Senate has passed legislation to raise the caps. The governor has introduced legislation to raise the caps, which sits in the House right now. So it's kind of on the House of Representatives to act and pass legislation that really needs to happen in the next, honestly, 60 days, 90 days, in order to allow community solar projects to go forward in Massachusetts. So that is the situation. I know, MMA. If any of you are members of MMA, they've been quite involved in these policy discussions. And so, if you want to see community solar in your community, I would encourage you to let your representatives know that. And I'm happy to answer more questions about that or anything else, but I will wrap it up for now, and I look forward to the Q&A.
All right, great. Thanks so much, Hannah. That was a really informational presentation. I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Lynn. I don't see any clarification questions coming up. Just want to remind attendees, if you do have questions, there is a Q&A box that you can type them into, and you can access it from the top right-hand side of your WebEx window. So feel free to shoot any questions to me, and I'll make sure that we're getting those to our presenters in the Q&A session. So with that, I'll hand over the presentation to Lynn Benander.
Fantastic. And can you all hear me now?
We can.
Well, I'm Lynn Benander with Co-op Power, and we've been working on our community shared solar model, and we've just launched it in the last month. And our members, so Co-op Power is a consumer energy cooperative. Here's a picture of our members at a recent annual meeting. And we're a multi-class, multi-race cooperative. We've got community energy co-ops across Massachusetts and southern Vermont that our members belong to, and we're really all about looking at how to bring sustainable and just energy to our communities in a way that supports local economic development and creates good green businesses and good green jobs that bring our members the kind of energy that they most want to buy. And so here's the 6 community energy co-ops that comprise our network right now. There's one in the Boston area called Boston Metro East that's looking into a number of community shared solar projects right now. And just to give you an idea of who we are, we've supported the development of 22 green businesses over the last 10 years, 200 good green jobs, and a network of 7,000 people across Massachusetts and southern Vermont. And on the right-hand side, it kind of gives you a sense of our timeline, we started off helping solar installation businesses get started, and we created a solar vendor network so that our members could get good prices on solar installations. In a sense, we kind of were doing a solarized project, but we didn't even know it, but we were negotiating prices for our customers that were very advantageous. Then we installed solar hot water systems and launched our Green Job Training Program. We've raised $2 million in our member loan program that's really helped to be the engine for supporting this development. We've done residential energy efficiency work, starting businesses across the state in Massachusetts, including Energia in Holyoke, that's up to $3 million, and we're doing about $1 million out of Co-op Power directly. And we also helped the development of a thermal window insert fabrication business, and a couple of electricians expanded to help us with knob and tube wiring and other ways of supporting the kinds of electricity upgrades that our members were looking for. We launched a Boston residential energy efficiency service business that's right now up to about $700,000 a year. We installed a solar system on the roof of the Brattleboro Food Co-op, and we're launching our biodiesel business this fall. And we've already talked a lot about what is community shared solar, so we won't go over that too much anymore, and why it's useful. And as both Hannah and Emma mentioned, because of the solarized programs in Massachusetts, there's so many people that are really interested in getting solar that couldn't get it. And so community shared solar is in high demand, as many of you already know, because it really gives both renters and homeowners access to solar energy in an affordable way. In addition to this market interest, we've got the government incentives that are in place, and Hannah mentioned the challenges we've got on the policy front to make sure that we're able to raise the caps so that any community that wants to install a community shared solar project is able to, and that virtual net metering credits are allowed, because that's the way we generate electricity in one place on one parcel of land and assign it through that meter to another meter far away. So that virtual net metering credit legislation is also very important for this. And the reduction in cost for solar is also really driving this, because it's so much more affordable than it was a few years ago, and also the rising electric rates that we've seen from our utilities over the winter. That also is making people much more interested in finding out what their alternatives are. Co-op Power is looking to put 10 projects in the ground. Unlike Clean Energy Collective, we're working on our first one. So, and we're looking at doing 9 more before the end of 2016. We have 17 projects under development right now in Massachusetts and southern Vermont, and we've just completed 4 site visits and technical reviews for those. But we're looking at really fast tracking and having all the project planning done for these 10 projects by mid-March. We're looking to do 10 projects, average of total cost would be about $20 million, $2 million each. We're bringing in tax equity investors for about 42% of that cost, bringing them an IRR of 10%. We're looking at bringing in loans of $4.4 million for another 22%, and those will be repaid by the SRECs. And then the virtual net metering credits would go to the consumers and businesses and municipalities that are purchasing the virtual net metering credits, the power from those projects, and that's about 35% of the project cost, and for 0.4% from Co-op Power as the sponsor equity. And so we've got our community partners, we've got our design build contractors, some of the companies that we help get started are now big enough to take on these kinds of projects, and other local contractors. We have a big emphasis on communities choosing their installer so that it is people from their community whenever possible, bringing in the financing and the tax equity investors, and that's why we're launching now. Each project is going to eliminate 425 tons of carbon a year, enable 200 to 400 families to go solar depending on how many kilowatts they buy, and produce more than 700,000 kilowatt hours of clean electricity. And the way it works in our model is consumers pay about $2,000 for the net metering credits generated by 1 kilowatt of the array's production over a 25-year period. This is the total amount that they pay. There's not any other fees. And in our model, this translates to $2 a watt. It includes payment for the inverter replacement after year 12. Consumers don't get the tax credits and the SRECs. Those are used to pay the tax equity investors and the lenders who are helping us build those systems. This is available to renters and homeowners, and they can, every 6 months, they'd be able to change the utility account number that their credits are applied to if they move. What this gives us is local control and local ownership after 5 to 7 years. And to compare that to if people own their own system, if they've got a strong enough roof with enough sun and enough money and they're able to take tax credits, they would pay somewhere between $375 and $425 a watt. They would then have to replace their inverter after 12 years. They would receive the 30% tax credit and the SRECs, and they would have their own personal ownership and control of that system, which for our members is a pretty high value. And so our computation says that for people who aren't able to do solar on their own roof, this is a really great option for them. And both of these models are likely eligible for the Mass Solar Loan Program that Emma told you about, which is going to provide loans for 3% or less interest rate, 10 years, I believe. It might be 7. Emma can maybe correct me on that. And with a 20 or 30% reduction in costs for people who are 100% to 120% of the state's median income. And for us at Co-op Power, where we're trying to really find ways to make this extremely affordable for customers, we're very excited that Massachusetts is coming out with this loan program that's going to provide these principal reductions in the loans so that people will be able to have an easier time making the payments and accessing the savings on their electricity. Municipalities can also sign up for as many kilowatts of production as you would like, and you'd pay $2,000 for the net metering credits generated by each kilowatt of the array's production for 25 years. And this would compare because your municipalities generally install larger system, you can get a better price on that system, and we're estimating about $275 to $325 a watt. And you would be, again, replacing your inverter. We can find a way for the SRECs to get to you, and you would have local ownership and control of your project. If you partner with Co-op Power and buy your virtual net metering credits from a project that we do in collaboration with you, you can reap many of the same benefits that homeowners do in our system. And you can also, as Hannah said, you can lease land that we can use in community shared solar sites and also support the development of community-based efforts that are bringing benefit to people in your communities. And we'd be very excited to talk with you about that. And let's see, so this is kind of what the project timeline looks like. Right now, this is the first project that we're doing in Greenfield, Mass, where we've raised the money. We're going through the environmental permitting and review. We've already applied for our interconnection. We're in the Eversource territory where they're still is room in the cap. And by December, we're looking to put in the order for the system, have it installed and in operation by August. And then between August and November, we're looking to build these other projects in partnership with 10 other installers. Our first project is located on our site with 23 acres that we've purchased for the biodiesel plant that we're building. It's a 600 kilowatt project. Northeast Biodiesel will use 200 kilowatts of the production, and 200 households will use the other 400 kilowatts. And we're looking to have 40% of those households be families on fuel assistance, with shares purchased with CAP agency grant funds that we're looking to raise right now. And this is what a typical project looks like with the numbers I shared with you earlier. It's a $2 million project with money coming from the tax equity investor, the co-op power loans from our members, and a bank loan and co-op power investment. And that money will be used primarily to build the array, to interconnect with the utility, and for legal and project management expenses. And in conclusion, Co-op Power's community shared solar projects are really great for customers, consumers, for residents in your communities, especially for people with limited resources. These projects are a successful enterprise that would be located in your community. It's good for the environment. It brings valuable economic benefits to communities in your region for your community. And again, just to conclude, it really needs your support. This project doesn't work without raising the net metering caps and keeping virtual net metering in force. So really hope that you'll consider investing time and energy in building this incredible resource for people in your community and for your municipality itself, and that you'll also support the political work we need to do to make sure the caps are raised and virtual net metering is sustained.
Great. Thank you so much, Lynn. That was a fantastic presentation. Before we get into the Q&A, and we have a few questions come in, Emma Krause from DOER wanted to mention something about the loan program. So, Emma, if we have you on the line, you can go ahead.
Yes, thank you so much, Ani. Lynn covered some of it. I just wanted to add some clarification just so folks aren't confused with the loan program. It's a residential loan program. Lenders will have to offer a 10-year option. There's also the opportunity for them to offer others, be it a 7, a 12, a 15, but they have to offer a 10. There's a couple different credit enhancement mechanisms to make it more palatable for lenders and installers and borrowers. The main one for borrowers is an interest rate buy-down. We've allocated a certain amount of money for the interest rate buy-down, and for the first $5 million we've allocated, we're going to buy down the interest rate by 3%. Lenders are capped at a specific interest rate that's pegged to Wall Street Journal Prime, which right now is around 6%, so you'd be getting a 3% interest rate. But I do want to be clear that it's not going to be 3% the whole time. We're hoping to ratchet down that interest rate buy down, and also should interest rates rise and Wall Street Journal Prime, it's pegged to Wall Street Journal Prime, the interest rate you're offered could rise a little bit. And as Lynn astutely mentioned, there is also a moderate income adder, as identified in the program. Should somebody qualify for that, you can also benefit from that. To learn more about that program, it's complex. If my little talk right there didn't indicate that, feel free to go to masssolarloan.com, and you'll be able to learn a little bit more about the procedure for a homeowner or an installer or a lender. And if folks, again, have questions about that program, that's also under my purview here at DOER, so happy to answer anything folks want to know.
Great. Thanks, Emma. And the first question actually would be ideally suited for you to answer. So we have a question asking whether if a municipality buys into a community shared solar program but doesn't keep the SREC ownership, can they claim the green attributes of that power?
I know, because those SRECs are the green attributes. So essentially when you get rid of them, you are selling the green attributes around the power.
Okay. Another question about the slides. We will be circulating the slides at the end of the webinar, and we'll have them up on the web along with the recording, so don't worry about that. The next question, and this, I guess, any one of you can take. What do you suggest for a city with little or no land available for a community shared solar project? Do cities lease land in other communities? Is that something that's done? I'm going to unmute all of our panelists so they can respond accordingly.
Sure. So this is Hannah. I can take a crack, and then happy to have Lynn and Emma jump in. So based on the policies in Massachusetts, you as a customer, as a local government customer, could participate in any community shared solar project that is within your same utility service territory and within the load zone, the Northeast ISO load zone of your project. So it can be, in a lot of cases, a fairly large area. So you could certainly participate in projects that are, several towns away or something like that. It is possible to site community solar projects on rooftops. It can be a little bit more expensive, but sometimes, given the circumstances, it works out. So that's not, off the table. But generally, the most economic way to do it is to find, several acres of kind of marginal land and site there.
Great. Does anyone else have anything to add to that piece, or?
No, I think it's exactly the same for us.
Okay.
I think Hannah did a great job.
All right. Well, the next question is about the nonprofit model. So Winchester was mentioned as considering a nonprofit model. Can we dive a little more into this, or about nonprofit organizations as community solar customers or anchors? And
Sure.
Are there any projects being built on land owned by nonprofits?
Yeah, sure. I can start here, and then Hannah and Lynn, if there's other things you know of, please jump in. So what Winchester's working on is looking at a way to link together several different nonprofits and use the members from those nonprofits as off-takers of the power, or one nonprofit off-taking from a nonprofit that's producing more than their load. They're working with an organization called Village Power to do this, because many of the nonprofits in Winchester that are interested are churches. So for folks there, the person they want to reach out to learn a little bit more, her name is Susan McPhee, and she is the energy manager in the town of Winchester and town of Woburn. And she's kind of orchestrating this project. I know Village Power has also worked in Melrose, if I'm not mistaken, and so it might be interesting to learn about their experience there. So what Winchester's doing in terms of linking several different groups together, to my understanding, is the first of its kind.
Great, thanks, Emma. Hannah and Lynn, anything else you've seen in your experience where projects are being built on land owned by nonprofits, or where they're the anchor customers?
Yes, some of the projects that we're working on are with nonprofits, and we've built a not-for-profit model for community shared solar. That's what the co-op power model is, because our customers are the owners of the business, so that was our charge. So we're using a not-for-profit model to benefit customers, municipalities, and especially nonprofits. So we're working with quite a number of them. Great.
Yeah, and this is Hannah. We certainly do have several nonprofit customers. We also, I'll just mention, because I know this is generally a hot topic, that there's a lot of interest in how to get low and moderate income customers able to participate in community shared solar projects. And so we have a couple partnerships, not yet in Massachusetts, but in other states, with nonprofits that work closely with low and moderate income communities. And so we'll partner with them to help us reach those communities, whether it's marketing or incentives to help support the projects or whatever. So I think that's an interesting area that a lot of people are interested in, and something I'd like to see more of in Massachusetts.
Great. It looks like we have time for maybe one more question that we can squeeze in. Is there a benefit for municipalities to be a host versus just, being an anchor customer for a site that's remote to their municipality. Can you guys talk about that a little bit?
Well, I think there's just tremendous benefit to communities to have a community shared solar project sited in your community. And because it's important that we use marginal land, not prime farmland or pristine forests, that we're just not clear cutting, this is not accomplishing any of the environmental goals and won't get you all the benefits anyway. Municipalities often are the owners of the land that would make the most sense to use. So I think that just in an effort to be building our renewable energy future together, it's important that municipalities play a role, any role that they can, and I think sometimes they do have the best land to be using for this purpose.
Yeah, and I would definitely agree with that. I think just kind of depends on how much you want to do, how much you want to get involved, and how much bandwidth you have. I think signing up as a customer is relatively easy. Going to your local officials with the proposal of, hey, we're going to save whatever it is, 15%, starting tomorrow on our energy bills forever, or for a long time anyways. That's a pretty easy pitch. So that's a natural, I think, step. Hosting a project, certainly there's the benefits of lease revenue like we talked about. So it's it's a little more work, but a little more payoff, I think, for you.
Yeah, I would echo what Hannah said there. Definitely is the extent to which you want to get involved and to which your town has the bandwidth to not only go through the process of solar, but also the procurement that would go along with all that.
Absolutely. That definitely, at least through our experience, we've seen that is definitely a factor. The complexity of the procurement for the project can move a project from feasible to not feasible. So those are definitely good points. And it looks like that's about as much as we have time for. I just want to thank Emma, Hannah, and Lynn again for your presentations. It seems like just like how we have unique community shared solar models, we had unique technical challenges with our presentation, so apologize for that. But we should have the recording of this webinar up on MAPC's website in the next couple of days, and we will have the slides as well with that. So we have, and any other questions if you're sending in, I'll make sure to get them to our presenters, and maybe we can type up a brief response to that along with the presentation slides. So with that, I want to say thanks and have a good weekend.